Ryan Poles shocks us and signs Tremaine Edmunds, 24 years old, to the largest 4-year inside linebacker contract in the history of the NFL. 4 years, $72 million with $50 guaranteed. He's an awesome player, but not a ton of crazy stats beyond tackles. And the Bears had a guy like that in Roquan Smith, who Ryan Poles chose not to sign. So we're going to get the specifics on Tremaine Edmunds from their beat reporter, their sideline reporter, Sal Capaccio. You can find him on Twitter at Sal Sports. He's with us on the Circa Resort and Casino hotline. Circa Resort and Casino in Las Vegas, home of the world's largest sports book. Sal, thanks so much for the time, man. How you doing today?
I'm good, guys. Anytime. Thank you for having me.
Of course. So what should Bears fans know about Tremaine Edmunds?
Very, very good player. One of the better middle linebackers in the league. Extremely rangy, athletic. I mean, for his size, he's a really tall guy, but he can really move. You know, he can go sideline to sideline. Those are the really positive things. The issue that Bills fans have had with Tremaine Edmunds, he's a very polarizing player, by the way. Like, Bills fans, if you did a poll, I mean, I think we actually have done these things, right, that should they re-sign him or not, it's pretty much probably 50-50, because the issue Bills fans have had with Tremaine Edmunds is he's not great at the point of attack, and he hasn't made really big game-changing plays in his 5 years. You just said, like, tackles, yeah, like he's in there in tackles. He's a middle linebacker. You're going to have that. But when you watch Tremaine Edmunds, you're always kind of wondering, when's that big play going to happen? He's rarely made like a big interception, a big strip sack, a fumble recovery. It happened a little bit this year. There were 1 or 2 of those plays, but that's been the issue. And if you ask Bills fans, is he worth $18 million a year? I think most would say no, given those things. That said, I'm not trying to diminish what he can do on the field as a rangy sideline to sideline backer. He actually plays more to me like a will linebacker than he does a middle linebacker. He's not real downhill type guy. You know, he can actually get even kind of swallowed up by some bigger, stronger offensive linemen sometimes.
Yes, it's really interesting. Well, this is why we call, because we don't want to be out of town stupid. And when you watch somebody for 5 years, and hell, he just played on the option year. So it's not like the Bills did an extension with him. So it's not just fans that have mixed feelings. Leslie Frazier's spoken about wanting to see Edmunds make more splash plays. So what do you think he does appreciably better than Roquan Smith? He's obviously taller and is longer, but we're trying to figure out why this fit is so much better than what they had with Roquan.
Okay, so I'm wondering what the Bears are going to do with Edwards and Edmunds, because Edwards is really more of a middle linebacker as well. Now, is there a scenario where one of them plays Will? Could Tremaine Edmunds actually move to Will or strong side or whatever? Like, maybe that's a better fit. I actually believe, I've always believed, guys, that Tremaine Edmunds' best fit in the NFL is a 3-4 inside linebacker. He's not people say move him to the edge, move him outside. He's not going to play out there. He's not going to bend. He's not a pass rusher. But you can really use him in the middle of the field. He's a very good zone coverage linebacker, by the way. That might be what he does. But that's because of his range. He's so tall. He's so rangy. He's not a great man-to-man cover linebacker, but he's very good in zone coverage. He can really take up a lot of space. I mean, he impacts throws. Quarterbacks try to look over him. They try to throw through windows, and that wingspan is incredible. So you want him in the middle of your defense. But he's not a true, to me, 4-3 middle linebacker. Now, that's changed, right? I mean, you guys know Mike Singletary there. Obviously, you have Ray Lewis. You have these really the middle linebackers we all grew up with watching. We know the game has changed. Not every team needs or even wants those kinds of players right now. But I do think there's something to said for a guy that if you're going to be in the middle of the defense, you got to go up and downhill. And Tremaine doesn't do that all that great. He can get there, but he doesn't bring as much to the party as you'd want.
You know who Bears fans wanted to make more interceptions and sacks? Brian Urlacher. Like I remember I was here covering the end of Urlacher's career, and obviously Chris Mortensen comped Edmunds to Urlacher a little bit. It's like that job in this defense is to be in the middle and affect throws and go back sometimes. So maybe that's exactly what they want, perhaps, Sal.
Maybe it is. I mean, again, I think that I just find it fascinating. They've signed both these players like over there from the outside looking in. Like, what does the scheme look like? What is the plan for those two? We'll see. And again, I love Tremaine. Tremaine he really grew here in Buffalo. I have to remember, he was drafted at 19 years old. That's amazing. He turned 20 years old before he played in his first NFL game. He turned 20 years old that summer. I mean, he was literally manning the middle of an NFL defense with the green dot, calling plays, and he couldn't even drink a beer, right? I mean, think about that for a second, right? It's incredible. Like but he's grown. He's gone 5 years, and the Bills thought well enough to give him the 5th-year option. It was a great call. They should. Bills defense has been one of the top in the league under Leslie Frazier and Sean McDermott. since they got here. And really, Tremaine came in that second year. He was a first-round draft pick with Josh Allen that same year. Tremaine Edmunds is a solid player. He's had a very nice Buffalo Bills career. I'm just going to tell you, for $18 million, he better make more plays and game-changing, impactful plays than he made for the Buffalo Bills.
We're talking to Sal Capaccio. He covers the Bills on the sideline, and he's a beat reporter. We're thinking that a lot of the calculus is got rid of Roquan, was able to front-load Tremaine Edmunds' contract, and Edmunds and Edwards, plus a second-round pick, for that you got in the Roquan trade. That makes up the Roquan difference. So that's how we're kind of figuring, Ryan Poles is figuring out. We'll see how the scheme fit works on the field. Give us some more of that color commentary, though, about 19 years old, growing and all that, like the type of person, anecdotes about Tremaine Edmunds.
So I'm sure you guys know this. Maybe your listeners aren't familiar. Maybe you've talked about it, but this is a football family, right? I mean, Tremaine was drafted in the first round in 2018. Later that same first round, his brother was drafted by the Pittsburgh Steelers, Terrell Edmunds. He plays safety out there. They have another brother, a running back. His name escapes me right now. He played for the Steelers. I don't know where he is right now. He might be kind of still trying to find a job. 3 brothers all playing in the NFL, and their dad was a tight end for the Miami Dolphins.
Great
back
one
in the day. And Farrell's a great guy. His mom, Tremaine's mom's cookie is awesome. They're a great family. I've gotten to know them very, very well. Love seeing them, and they are really just great human beings, great people. And Tremaine, you're going to love having him in the locker room. You're going to love having him in your community. I'll say that about him. And he's not going to dodge questions. He's not going to be avoiding the media. He's accountable. He'll talk. He won't give you much, but he's not going to be that kind of guy for sure. So I think all of those boxes he checks, and I think Ryan Poles is probably looking for those kinds of players. I think he's trying to change the culture. At least have a positive culture in those kinds of players. So I think all of those things are Tremaine's favor. And look, I think one of the things that, I was on board with the Bills re-signing Tremaine. So I also want to make it clear, if he would have came back to Buffalo, I'd be excited for the Bills. But to me, it was because he's so young that they could give him a 5 or 6 year deal here, spread out the money more. Now, we only got 4 in Chicago. That's fine. He's going to hit free agency again at the age of 29 and have another payday, which is great for him. So, the other part about this is, guys, he really grew into a leader. Not very vocal his first several years in the league. He's not super vocal now, but got to a point where I felt he felt really comfortable in his own skin. He became a captain this year, first time in the Bills that he was a captain. The other criticism I'll say that he's grown into, though, and you'll hear this from him, you'll see this, he's actually been better at this, though, I'll say. Sometimes he's a tick late diagnosing things. Now, if you go back to his rookie year, his second year, it was pretty bad at times. I think he's done a lot better at that. Maybe that comes with the game-changing plays. Maybe that's that little difference to be somewhere where you're supposed to be there, when you're supposed to be there, just in time to make that game-changing play. But I always thought, and one of the criticisms Bills fans have always had is just a little bit late diagnosing some things sometimes.
Well, that's really interesting stuff with Sal Capaccio from Buffalo. Both of these linebackers, we just talked to TJ Edwards, right? And we've talked about him. Both of these guys love football, seemingly have incredible character and are smart and, good families and all of that. I think it does matter a lot to them. And they believe those kind of guys can get better. And what do you think Tremaine Edmunds can do better? You just mentioned diagnosing the plays.
Yep.
Maybe he'll get faster at that. Are there other things that you think he can improve on? Because incredibly, he is only 24.
Yeah, those are the mental things. I think, physically, if he can get a little stronger and have a way to, he's come a long way in this regard. It's so nitpicky to talk like this because I don't want to ever feel like I'm downing Tremaine. I think he's a tremendous football player. He's one of the he's a big part of the Bills' defense over the last several years. But I think that what happens is sometimes he gets to the point of attack, and I think that linemen can get under his pads a little bit. He's tall, and he's not super thick, right? He's taller. He's not super strong. He's not an Urlacher like that. And even like Matt Milano is here. You guys know Matt Milano's a really good player. Matt Milano's 6 foot 230. He's a little lower to the ground. So you see the difference between when he gets to a spot and he has to take on a blocker. He's able to do that a little bit better, I think, than Tremaine sometimes, because Tremaine, I think he lets those stronger guys get into him a little bit. So what can he do better? I think he needs to keep those guys off him, and he uses length, get to the point of attack, keep those guys off him with his body, with his hands, things like that. But he's been in the league 5 years, and it hasn't. He hasn't been great at that yet. So will he ever get great at it? I don't know. But it also could depend on the angles he takes in the system, the scheme that he's in because of that.
Has he gotten better in terms of work ethic and development? Do you feel like he has gotten better since his rookie year to now?
Never a question about work ethic. Never a question. Tremaine's going to be there all the time. He's going to be a guy that you'll never have the question about that. But I think he has grown in that regard. I think that, when he came in, the Bills were building something, right? They were very young at the time. But they had some veterans on the team that I think that Tremaine kind of, followed and watched and saw. Jerry Hughes was here for a long time, even before Tremaine. He's left. Now he was a defensive end, but a guy like that on the defense. But, I think one thing that really helped Tremaine was growing with Matt Milano a lot. Milano came here a year before. They kind of grew up in the system together. And behind them, at the same time, you had Milano, and then you had Poyer and Hyde and Tre'Davious White all come in 2017. They're 1 year in the system. Tremaine Edmunds comes in 2018. He's got these guys that he was able to kind of learn from as they all grew together. And I think that was really good for him. So I think for him, the question is like what they're trying to build there. Is he going to be the guy that, okay, you're coming in, you're 25 years old now, you're a veteran, you've been in this league, this is your sixth year, bam, everything's on you? Or is he going to have some guys that he's kind of, growing with, that he can be a part of there? Because I don't think Tremaine is the alpha male leader. He's a leader because he does everything right, but he's not the alpha male leader, so that'll be interesting.
Yeah, I will. Hey, Sal, if the Bears lose David Montgomery, should they grab Devin Singletary? Is that what's his major malfunction, Devin Singletary, that we don't know about?
Not elite speed. He's never going to run away from people. He had the long run against the Bears in the Christmas Eve game, which, by the way, I was on the sidelines for, and I wore ski goggles, and it was the coldest day of my life, basically.
Yep.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
He's never going to run. Yeah, he's not going to run away from people. But he's very shifty. He doesn't. He did actually have one a couple of years ago. Towards the end of the year, he scored a bunch of touchdowns, but he doesn't score a lot of touchdowns. He's not a guy that you're going to be relying on necessarily to get the ball into the end zone. He's not like great out of the backfield. He can catch the ball. He's had some drops as well. If you want to use him like that, but that's not why you sign a guy like that. I think that he's very shifty. He'll follow his blocks very well. He's more of a zone type of runner. So yeah, I mean, I like Devin a lot. I think Devin can still play in the league. I think he can still produce at a high level. He's also not probably a guy you're going to give the ball to, 20, 24 times a game. It's more like probably 12, 13 touches, something like that. But I think it's really kind of the speed once he gets out in the open field is probably his biggest knock. But, he's still able to get through holes and have enough big games in its own right.
Sal Capaccio covers the Bills. Excellent insight on Tremaine Edmunds, man. Thank you very much for the insight and the time. Thank you.
All right, you guys got it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's good stuff. And
I think I'm now back to Edmunds as the will and Edwards as the Mike after that. Just
Edwards, green dot guy, super cerebral.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
diagnosing
that part of it, and Edmunds maybe being able, as the freak of nature athletically, being able to be unlocked to be a more productive piece in the 4-3, like the system for Eberflus. At the will. Yeah. Maybe, that's I'm back to that.
Maybe the way we ought to think about it is the two of them next to each other in the nickel for more than 50% of the plays.
That's right.
Right.
It's different than, and we talked about this a lot when they hired Eberflus. And everyone wanted to keep talking about.
It's different than the Lovey days.
The league's just different.
Right.
Base formation is 3 receivers.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Maybe we should be thinking about these two middle backers that they've signed to play next to each other as they do.
Who have both worn the green dot,
right.
Who are both very smart players.
As they're in the 4-2-5,
Yeah. Right.
That's part of the vision, maybe the biggest part of the vision of how they're doing it.
Yeah, that might be right. Instead of trying to make one of them Urlacher and make one of them Briggs and wonder about it. And Sanborn is depth, and occasionally you're in your base, and sometimes you're in a jumbo set and you need a bunch of linemen and tackle and linebackers on the field. Yeah.
And like TJ Edwards said to us, that room, he's going to love the room. He loves Sanborn, and both those guys being.
But he's a good coverage guy too. So
who's that? Edwards or
Edmunds? Edmunds. That's what he's known for.
That's what he's known for.
He's known for the coverage. So
you're a little bit in the dime when you've got him out there as one of your backers.
Yeah, I think it's going to be. I think that will be interesting. They'll eventually speak to it, but my guess is what you just said is right. That it's going to be more about like we talk about in the NBA, like positionless basketball.
Yes.
I remember like when Isaiah Simmons came out of college from Clemson and he went to Arizona. It was like he had X number of tackles, X number of pass breakups and interceptions, and X number of sacks.
Right.
And it was like, oh, he can just do anything.
Sure.
Like Swiss Army knife.
We've
type.
seen a lot of guys, whether it's Tyrann Mathieu, who's a safety, but he comes up and half plays backer.
Yeah.
Or backers that half played safety. So, yeah, I think there's going to be some flexibility with that. But they need to explain it. There's a lot of people, like when Sal says, I think it's fascinating. Fascinating is code word for what are they doing exactly? And that's understandable.
I'm very surprised, and I would imagine most of the Bears media is surprised.
They are.
Did anyone
nobody had Tremaine Edmunds,
but even as like a speculated target, or like forget like a link or anything like that, but like even just like a speculated target for the Bears, I don't think anyone had the Bears and Tremaine Edmunds. So this is catching a lot of us by surprise, but he is an awesome player.
Without a doubt. And you restating the calculus, and we'll have to do it occasionally, is very important. They traded Roquan as part of a disaster by design, as David Haugh called it, the tank, and got a second-round pick for it, and then paid this guy 1 year less with a front-loaded deal, and he's a better fit. So it's not just swapping one for the other, but it's the fact that there's not a lot of production that historically that, because that was the one that made sense. Well, Shaq Leonard produces. And Eberflus would talk about it with some condescension if you actually read between the lines, and this guy has not produced in terms of splash plays.